Ladies and gentlemen, please focus your attention on the screens. The program is about to begin.
The Leadership Alliance is transformative.
It is effective, it's important.
Leadership Alliance is a catalyst.
A professional family.
It's a career builder.
An opportunity, an incredible opportunity.
It brings together the best people. It brings together the best ideas.
The Leadership Alliance is family that looks out for you.
It's fantastic, it's wonderful, it's groundbreaking.
Without Leadership Alliance, I wouldn't be where I am right now.
Welcome to the Leadership Alliance National Symposium, where we are celebrating 25 years of training, mentoring, and inspiring. Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Madej Begui. I'm the Executive Director of the Leadership Alliance. 25 years. Think about it. A quarter of a century. This is a significant milestone in the history of an organization. So this evening, we pause to tell our story, to reflect on our past, and pay tribute to our founders and leaders who realized the disparity, conceptualized a vision of equality, and catalyzed a partnership committed to creating opportunity. Our story begins in the winter of 1990. Brown University President Vartan Gregorian engaged his fellow Ivy League presidents in a new initiative to address minority underrepresentation in the academy at the graduate school and faculty levels. In the summer of 1991, Gregorian asked Brown University Associate Provost and our founding director, Dr. James Weich, to create the consortium that became the Leadership Alliance. In 1992, the Leadership Alliance was established with 23 founding institutions, representing an innovative collaboration among research universities and minority-serving institutions. We are here today because institutional leaders, faculty, and administrators from those 23 institutions were committed to addressing issues of equity and access in higher education and decided to act. In the Leadership Alliance prospectus, we find these words: losing minority students all along the pipeline is no longer tolerable. In order to build a reservoir of talent from which to draw on this large national talent pool, we must simply intervene. One of the participants of that first meeting has been with the Alliance for all 25 years and is here this evening. Dr. Joel Oppenheim, stand up. Dr. Joel Oppenheim is a dean with a dream. For nearly half a century, 48 years, Joel has served as a steadfast mentor and surrogate father to many students, present company included, a staunch advocate for students, and a defender of diversity. Joel created a lasting impact at New York University through the founding of NYU's Summer Undergraduate Research Program. The SR-EIPs, they're here, I'm pretty sure they're here. The postdoctoral program, and rising through the ranks as the Senior Associate Dean in the graduate school. And he continues to fight the good fight in his role as Professor Emeritus in Diversity Advisor to the Office of Science Research. Through his leadership, he has transformed lives and launched countless careers. Joel is our colleague, our friend, and our family. So Joel, for all that you have done, is doing, and will continue to do, a heartfelt thanks from me to you. Since that 1992 meeting, we have built a stronger alliance, now comprised of 36 members of higher education and industry. And as an alliance, we are greater than the sum of our parts. By pooling our expertise and our resources, we have designed and implemented programs to introduce students to research and to build community with our national symposium. And our story continues with Dr. Valerie Wilson, my mentor and friend, who led the organization from 2003 to 2009. She writes, and I quote, "By 2005, the Leadership Alliance had evolved into a vibrant source of students and competitive training programs which documented that the partnership was working. Under her leadership, we celebrated the first 100 PhDs in 2008. Now, we have nearly 500 scholars with doctoral degrees. So will all of our doctoral scholars who are here with us today please stand and be recognized? New programs were launched, including the Leadership Alliance Mellon Initiative that more than doubled the number of students conducting research in the social sciences and humanities, and the visibility and prominence of the Alliance was enhanced through numerous national and international conferences and awards, most notably the Presidential Award for Excellence in Science, Mathematics, and Engineering Mentoring presented by President Obama. Yes, we can clap for that. Because of these efforts, the Alliance is a much stronger entity that will continue to a prominent place as a national model of excellence. I am honored and humbled to serve as the Executive Director of the Alliance, and I say that I am humbled because I am mindful of those who have come before me. There is a quote that's attributed to Isaac Newton way back in 1675 that states, "If I have seen further than others, it is because I have stood on the shoulders of giants." Make no mistake, my sisters and brothers, we are all standing on the shoulders of giants. Because of the tireless efforts and personal sacrifices of our Alliance institutional and summer program coordinators, our faculty, our partners, my team, I would not be here today. We would not be here today. So please join me in acknowledging all of our coordinators, our faculty, my team today. Please stand and be recognized. All of the coordinators, all of the faculty, those of you who are mentoring. Yes, this is why it works. This is why we are here. Serving in this capacity is a profound honor because of the trust that you have bestowed in me to realize the vision of the Leadership Alliance. From idea generation to implementation, we are increasing research opportunities for first-year students with our first-year research experience. We are leveraging our synergies to amplify training and mentoring activities for graduate students, for postdoctoral fellows, for our faculty, our administrators, our research professionals, at each stage of the academic pathway. We are fulfilling our promise to discover potential, cultivate talent, and populate a workforce reflective of the diverse fabric of our society. Now, we are here today as a result of a continuum of mentoring that has led to a legacy of scholars. As part of this year's 25th anniversary, we have invited members of the Leadership Alliance community to tell their stories. Tonight, we are featuring our doctoral scholars who, through their experiences, and unique personal and professional perspectives will reflect on the impact of the Leadership Alliance in their lives. Our first speaker, Dr. Marcus Jones, the Senior Program Manager, R&D Planning, Strategy, and Operations at Regeneron Pharmaceuticals. And Dr. Jones was a SR-EIP in 1999 at NYU. Let's listen in as he describes his experience meeting city folk in New York and getting out of his comfort zone to find a professional home with the Leadership Alliance.
So, family, and I really want to really hone on that word family. The Leadership Alliance is not just an organization, it's not just a scholarship, but we're all one big family, and we're all here to support and serve one another. And so my moment in the Leadership Alliance started in 1999, and when I come in from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, on the banks of the Mississippi River, I'm used to, a slower pace. When you walk down the street, you smile at people, you say hello, you give them a hug, you say, how you doing? So when I got off the plane in New York, I was like, where am I? And, it almost wanted to just go back home because these city folk were just rude. They would push you out of the way. And I was like, what did I get myself into? So when I got to NYU, I met this guy, had this big old afro, and he was like, where are you from? I'm like, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And he was like, welcome to New York. And so that after meeting that dean at NYU, who is one of my best friends now, and I can't really say more about him, but that summer, the Leadership Alliance, through that mentoring, really prepared me for not only accepting and really having more confidence in myself, but really giving me the tools to be able to evolve and to take advantage of new opportunities. So through the Leadership Alliance, being a part of it has opened other doors that I would never been a part of. It helped me to adapt to different situations, from going from New York to Washington, D.C., to taking a chance to going out to California to do a startup and bringing me back to New York now where I work at Regeneron. And not only coming back to New York, but having the courage to change from bench research to more program management. So really embrace the Leadership Alliance as a family and leverage us. I can tell you hundreds of other stories, but this whole weekend, take advantage of me and feel free to come up to me at any time. Thank you. One quick note. Sorry, Medeva, off protocol. On the left, or to your right, is me when I was about 4 years old, and on the left is my mini-me. He is 3 weeks old, and it's my genetic experiment in action. Thank you.
Dr. Teresa Ramirez is the 2016-2017 National Human Genome Research Institute American Society of Human Genetics and Education Fellow. And she was at Brown University in 2002 for her summer research program. Dr. Ramirez invites us to learn about how staying connected to the Leadership Alliance helped to overcome her roadblocks and put her on the road to success.
I still recall the year 2010, a year that was challenging. It was my third year of grad school, when I received an email from a professor stating that she wanted to meet with me to discuss a research paper that I had written for her class. As you know, when you get emails, especially from a professor, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble. What did I do? So when I went to her office, indeed, it was to talk about this research paper that I had written, and she essentially told me that I didn't know how to write. And I thought, well, I'm in grad school to improve in my writing and to learn from that, but there's one more thing that she wanted to express. She told me that I was one of the nicest students in the program, but that yet I didn't have the skills that were needed to be in a PhD program. How do you guys think I felt? It was very hurtful. And I was devastated because I was not, I didn't know that that's what she was gonna tell me. But the first people that came to mind that I said I have to tell someone were my parents. And they're in that photo with me in my graduation. I reached out to my parents, and my mom was like, mija, I told you that there's situations like that are gonna happen. You're gonna get up from the floor and you're gonna continue reaching for your goal. And you gotta keep going straight. And hearing those words from my parents, especially my mom, was what kept me going. But I needed to express to someone else from Brown, and I needed to trust someone, right? So the first people that came to mind was, of course, the Leadership Alliance, Dr. Gee, and a dean at the time was Jabbar Bennett. So I reached out to them because I needed to tell someone what had happened, and I wanted to make sure that I trust these people. So when I talked to them, I felt comfortable, and they listened to me, and they said, Teresa, you're here for a purpose. We have your back, and we're gonna make sure that you graduate. And that's what I needed to hear. And sometimes we're scared to ask for help. We're scared to share these type of stories, but it happens. But there's always solutions to it. And thanks to the Leadership Alliance family that gave me that support that I needed. And one thing that I want to leave to you guys as students is that once you become part of the Leadership Alliance family, you would always be part of it. And not only it doesn't end here, it continues. So be sure to embrace this network and to come back and serve as mentors. So, as you all know, as a grad student, you're supposed to publish one first author paper, right? Well, let me tell you, I published 3. Thank you. And I obtained my PhD. Oh, and one thing I forgot. So essentially this professor told me that I couldn't write, but said, oh, you don't have the skills that are needed to be in a PhD program, yet you can get a master's degree and make such a big difference in your Latino community. Well, let me tell you, I got a PhD in molecular pharmacology and physiology, and yes, I am a Latina scientist straight out of Compton that made it to an Ivy League school. And that's my picture. Thank you.
Dr. Lamar Jarrell Bruce is Assistant Professor of American Studies at the University of Maryland, College Park, as well as a Ford Foundation postdoctoral fellow at the University of Pennsylvania. In 2001, he conducted his summer research program at New York University. And Dr. Bruce shares with us the importance of community building and heeding the call to leadership.
Good evening, friends. I am delighted to be here. During the summer of 2001, lifetimes ago, before Facebook, before the war on terror, before Twitter, before hashtag Black Lives Matter, before marriage equality and Trumpism, I was a sophomore at Columbia University, pondering pursuing a career in music journalism, fiction writing, or maybe humanities scholarship. And I was fortunate enough to be selected as a Leadership Alliance Fellow that summer, and the experience impacted my decision to enter door number 3, Humanities Scholarship. I'm grateful to the Leadership Alliance for various reasons. I want to, certainly for the opportunity to conduct research, the space, the time, the resources that were afforded to me, for the mentorship that I received, the gracious guidance and counsel from my faculty mentor. But I want to emphasize in particular 3 other benefits that distinguish the Leadership Alliance from some of the other communities in which I participate as a scholar of color. First of all, the Leadership Alliance, and this is back in 2001 at NYU. I represent the Bronx, by the way. Back in 2001, in addition to the academic component, the Leadership Alliance emphasized sociality. There were these wonderfully curated social events and experiences that prompted the scholars to participate in critical conversation and to build community. And I promise you that community building is as critical a skill set as whatever methodologies are prized in your respective fields and disciplines as you attempt to navigate the academy, yeah? Particularly those of us whose identity formations and subjectivities render us often vulnerable in these spaces. So community building. Sometimes you have to build the safe spaces you want to inhabit, right? You got to build communities of affirmation and encouragement and love, right? I was also grateful for the sort of interdisciplinary orientation that I was afforded in the Leadership Alliance. You know, I'm a scholar of humanities. I study Black expressive culture, particularly literature, film, and music. But the Leadership Alliance granted me the opportunity to be in community with natural and social scientists. And the project that I ended up producing that summer concerned HIV/AIDS, masculinity, sexuality, and popular culture in South Africa and in the United States. And I was surely influenced by the close proximity of the natural scientists, the biomedical scientists, and the social scientists in my cohort. I'm grateful for that. Most importantly, though, the Leadership Alliance was a model of encouragement, affirmation, and enthusiastic care. Grad school was not always a welcoming space for me. It was, I attended Yale, and while I'm grateful to the resources, the financial resources afforded to me at that institution, it was often an alienating and antagonistic space. And I would think back frequently and fondly about the Leadership Alliance as a model of enthusiasm. I had the pleasure, years after, this was 10 years after I graduated from college, back in 2013, to return to participate on a doctoral scholars panel. And I emphasized something during my comments. I emphasized the fact that we gather here as scholars who are members of racial and ethnic minorities, right? Peoples who have historically, systematically, structurally faced certain disenfranchisement and oppression and opposition. And that's an absolutely critically important enterprise. We, though, always have to be simultaneously thoughtful about the cleavages within that category of people of color, right? There are differences in gender identity and sexual orientation and nationality and citizenship status and ability that we must incorporate into the conversations we have here. And I hope that you all will do so. I remember mentioning that during the doctoral scholars panel and having a queue of students who felt acknowledged in my comments come up to me and give me the sort of praise and affirmation. It just felt so circular, yeah? Yes. I ostensibly encouraged and affirmed some of them, and they gave it back to me. Yes. This wonderful circle is taking place, and I want you to all participate in it. And in that moment, I realized, I was reminded of the sanctity and the momentousness of my work as mentor, as teacher, and perhaps even, provisionally, humbly, as leader. Now, I'm hesitant to use that word to describe myself, but then I remember we're gathered here today as members of the Leadership Alliance. We are all hailed as leaders, right? And leadership manifests in various ways. So I want to interpolate you all, to hail you all, to call you all forth as leaders, right? In your capacities as writers and scholars and community builders and lovers and beyond. I challenge you to lead. I've been grateful for the Leadership Alliance for giving me those opportunities, and I hope to encourage you all to do the same. Thank you.
Dr. Tiffany Brannon, Assistant Professor in Social Psychology at the University of California, Los Angeles. Now, Dr. Brannon's story reveals how a summer research experience at Stanford University in 2005 introduced her to a new field to which she has devoted her professional life.
Great. Well, good evening. So I'm a social psychologist. I'm also a cultural psychologist. And one of the questions that I spend a lot of time thinking about it's a very simple question. It's, who am I? And I think about how this question shapes motivations and behaviors people's sense of fit and belonging within institutions, which in turn shapes how well they perform in those institutions, their persistence in those institutions, and their mental and physical thriving in those institutions. I'm particularly interested in how questions of who am I are shaped by people who also hold negatively stereotyped identities such as racial and ethnic minorities. And so my experience with the Leadership Alliance in 2005 is actually an experience that actually was one of the first places where I got to connect my interest in identity and how it is shaped in many ways by different forms of negatively stereotyped identities, and seeing how this could actually be used in interventions to address social disparities that affects groups that are negatively stereotyped, that these things were revealed to me that this could be possible, right? That these questions about identity that I had personally actually could matter in research and actually could be used to solve real-world problems. And so I can tell you a little bit about how I came to be interested personally in the question of who am I? And it actually comes from a very similar, perhaps just as common of a question, but a different question, which is, where are you from? And so I am actually from Miami, Florida, and a very common greeting in Miami is you say, where are you from? And it's actually very common and expected that you'll say a country of origin. And my experience growing up is I could never provide an answer to that question that seemed to satisfy the person who was asking me the question. And so essentially, the dialogue would go, where are you from? And I would say, I'm from here. Then they'd say, no, where are you really from? And I would say, well, my mother's family, they're from Texas and Louisiana. And they say, no, where are you from? And I could never fully answer that, right? Because I'm African American. My family are the descendants of slaves, right? I couldn't give them a country outside of the United States that could articulate the roots of my identity. And so as an undergraduate, I became interested in other disciplines actually outside of psychology, even though I was a psychology major, in which scholars had already thought really critically about how identity is shaped for African Americans in the United States and having to deal with the duality or the two-ness of double consciousness. And I always just thought about these as like, I'm interested and I'm passionate about psychology, and I have this thing with identity that I'm interested in both personally, and I have some scholastic interest in it, but it's separate from psychology. But then in 2005, when I was invited to participate in the research, the Leadership Alliance at Stanford University, and to conduct research in Dr. Hazel Marcus's lab, basically I got introduced to the field of cultural psychology, right? And the idea and understanding how history and institutions and everyday practices shape answers to who am I in meaningful ways that have implications for motivations and behaviors. And I was encouraged in that lab space, that early on as a sophomore, someone who just finished her sophomore year, that the questions that I had with Black identity, that this could be applied to the field of cultural psychology, and it could lead to really important questions for thinking about academic achievement, for thinking about health disparities. That encouragement and those questions that I asked in that safe space that summer in the Leadership Alliance program became the questions that formed my honors thesis as an undergraduate, my dissertation when I went on to pursue my master's and my PhD, in that same lab at Stanford, and now in my job as a professor at the University of California, Los Angeles. And so for me, the Leadership Alliance was an authentic and true pipeline. It really gave me access to a field that I wouldn't have known that I could have connected questions that I was so passionate about, and to make that passion my life's work. And so it really just has been a true pathway. Thank you.
Dr. Juan Cairo, Associate Professor, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill School of Education. Dr. Carrillo did his summer research in 1999 at Columbia University, and his story reminds us that it does not matter where you come from. What's more important is where you're going.
Good evening. It's been a great night so far, right? I'm going to call my story Tipping and Grub. So in the summer of 1999, I was a fellow at Columbia. A few years before that fellowship, I was living in Compton, California. So Where I grew up in Compton, and in my particular family where my Mexican parents had a third grade education, whenever we went out to eat as a family, we would go in my father's 1970 Ford Fairmont, and we would drive to the gas station, and my father would drop $1 to my sister and $1 to me, and he'd say, go get 2 hamburgers. So we would go into this little like store inside of a gas station, and we would eat hamburgers in the car. And we would talk about the past. We would talk about cultura. We would talk about familia. We would talk about dreams. And it was all over these 99-cent, 2 for 99-cent hamburgers full of relish, all right? Because we got to stack them up in order to get full in the hood, right? So we would stack them up. I go to Colombia, and I get a stipend. And for the first time in my life, I faced a white piece of paper that had a line that said tip. And for the first time in my life, I had the money to give a tip, right? And what was interesting is that not only did I give a tip, but I would get phone calls from my peers in the program that would say, I'll give you one story. A friend says, he was a student at Caltech, and he's like, Juan, my father writes for a national magazine. He's got a budget that he never, used up for food. So wherever you want in New York City, it's on me, man. Where do you want to eat? 5 stars. So we go to this Indian restaurant somewhere by Midtown Manhattan, and I remember when I walked in, there was like this cobra snake kind of like dancing. It was some kind of Indian restaurant. And I'm like, a cobra? What the hell is a cobra doing in the middle of a restaurant? And he's like, man, you don't get out very much, man. And I'm like, you don't either. You're like a physics major, man. But he's like, I go, look, man, let's go to that corner over there and let's sit over there and watch the cobra and eat some food. And to this day, I tell people it was the first time I ate Indian food. The way I took in that drink, the way I took in that meat, the way I took in that snake view. It was just powerful. It was like the best meal ever, right? So I was just like, wow, And I guess like the thematic core of something as simple and as innocent as eating Indian food for the first time, as tipping for the first time, is that in that innocence and in that moment, I was able to internalize the idea that I would be able to cross bridges. But when I crossed bridges of access and privilege, I would always remember that parking lot, right? I would always remember the parking lot where we were there eating 99-cent burgers and having family time. So today, as a professor at UNC Chapel Hill, my research, my mentorship, my teaching, the way I think about the world, the way I work within the world is connected with that dialogue between the privileges that I'm afforded and the memory of the beginning story in that parking lot. So, in conclusion, while my mother still to this day does not know exactly what I do, she does know that if she goes back to that garage, there's a photo album, and there's me, there's New York, there's Columbia University, and it's 1999. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And last but not least, we welcome Dr. Shari Ezel-Walker, who returned back to her alma mater as an assistant professor and newly minted chair of the biology department at Tougaloo College. Dr. Walker conducted her research at Brown University in 2003, and she reminds us that pursuing research careers is possible with the ongoing support and mentorship she found in the Leadership Alliance.
I've got this. Yeah, okay. One more experiment. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, and my mentor said I need to have this done by tomorrow. I can do this. But wait a minute. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. Who does he think he is, giving me an experiment to do at the end of the day and expecting me to stay while he's all warm and cozy in his bed?
2 o'clock in the morning. Lord, I'm tired. I don't know how much more of this I can do. I'm exhausted. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm just that little black girl from Mississippi that will never be a PhD. Maybe I am just a black minority that will never be anything more than a technician. I'm tired. I'm done. That was my emotional roller coaster ride. From being encouraged to discouraged, from motivated to frustrated, graduate life for me was exactly that. I mean, how did I even get in this mess in the first place? Oh yeah, the Leadership Alliance. So maybe that's who I need to go to get me out of this mess. And that's what I did. Through contacts and relationships that the Leadership Alliance had, they helped me to obtain a graduate internship at a pharmaceutical company, Eli Lilly and Company in Indianapolis, Indiana. The Lord knew I needed it, and the Leadership Alliance became my lifeline to help me through that third year in the Department of Pharmacology Toxicology. I had just called my mom and told her, look, it's over, I'm done. I will go work at Wendy's. And I meant it. But the Leadership Alliance had invested too much in me, and they would not allow that. It was during that graduate internship that I met some of the greatest mentors. Paul Ardafio, Don Brown, they were postdocs at Eli Lilly. Nakia Lowry, she was a postdoc at St. Jude Research Hospital doing my dream job. During that time, it was those individuals who began to speak life to me, to pour into me. They were the living, breathing examples of what I wanted to become. And they reminded me that, girl, if we can do it, you definitely can do it too. But it didn't stop there. Paul, he listened to me over the phone as I practiced my thesis defense to him. He reviewed my dissertation. Dawn, as a recent divorcee, she reminded me that, Shari, professional and personal, you gotta balance. Can't spend too much time in the lab that you forget about life. And Nakia, she was that phone call away that I made when I was debating whether to go into academia and whether I could actually navigate the terrain of research and teaching at the same time. It is because of them and great other mentors like Dr. Valerie Wilson and Dr. Made McGee that I stand here today as Dr. Shari Ezel Walker, pediatric cancer researcher, tenure track faculty, and most recently, chair of the biology department at Tougaloo College. Stand here to tell you that sometimes some of your greatest mentors may not be the ones that wear the title at your institution. Sometimes those people that are your advisors on paper may be your adversaries in real life. But I'm also here to tell you that the Leadership Alliance is invested in making sure that you succeed. If you look at the fabric of what other people call my success, you will undoubtedly see the golden sparkles of the Leadership Alliance, because that's what they are. They are the unselfish sacrifice. And because of them, I am the Leadership Alliance. And now because of me, you can now be the Leadership Alliance. Thank you. Colleagues, doctoral scholars, thank you so much for all of those wonderful stories. We are empowered. We are inspired by your persistence and determination. And we applaud you for all that you have and will continue to accomplish. I have one more story to tell that It's basically an email that I received after the symposium last year. We heard about the trials and tribulations, but how our doctoral scholars overcame those obstacles. And this story reminds us of the impact of the network and the impact of the symposium. And I wanted to share this with you because I want you to take advantage of this. The email goes, and I read, "On Sunday, as a young man, I was trying to figure out a way to say thank you to you, and I just didn't have the words at the time to express how I felt. I thought this would be a good time for me to tell you a little bit about myself and where I came from. I was born and raised in New York. At the age of 18, after almost not completing high school, I enlisted in the Marine Corps Infantry. At 18, I was at war in Iraq. On my 21st birthday, I wasn't at a bar. I was being shot at. What I'm trying to tell you is that military service molds you. After an honorable discharge, I lost myself. I found myself in a dark place where I never want to go back. I was homeless, had no job, failed out of college, and was struggling with PTSD and depression. I didn't have a mission anymore. I didn't have a purpose. I needed to be remolded, but not lose the skills that were drilled into me. I had two choices: to die or to bounce back, to reinvent my life, to change, to grow, to become something I never was, but always thought I could be. Through an academic train wreck like of a roller coaster, somehow I am still standing and made it to this point in my life. My hopes of this email is to give you a glimpse into what I've gone through to get here and how close I came to falling off the edge. I hope that through this story you can understand the meaning behind the words when I say thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. These words touched my heart, and I shared them with you because it made me realize the impact of this community that is more than just an assembly of scholars. We are family.
And when you get it all, just remember one thing, remember one thing. One man could change the world. One man could change the world.
We are here for all of us. We are here for all of us. That's why we are here. Why we are here.
We are here, and we are here for all of us to continue to train, to mentor, and to inspire here at this conference and for the next 25 years and beyond. Have a wonderful conference. Make it memorable. Enjoy yourselves.